Young Earth creationists believe everything was created in 1 week 6,000 years ago. Data and facts collected through the scientific method tell us otherwise.
Okay, someone never studied logic before. Your claim that the Earth is old is not a fact. It's an interpretation of the facts. It could never be a fact. You weren't there, I wasn't there, no one was there. Job 38:4 says, "Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding."
And Captain Kirk said, "What does God need with a starship?" So, Matt, I see that you have uploaded yet another masterpiece in which you try to state that evolution is incorrect by demonstrating either your lack of intellectual creativity and imagination to think outside of your little creationist box, or that you simply refuse to examine the very information that is repeatedly put down in front of you. Instead of doing any real research of your own, you would rather sit back in your chair with your fingers in your ears and scream, "If I don't understand it, it isn't true." But don't worry, Matt. I understand that sometimes your head gets so full of creationist bullshit that it reaches critical mass and erupts out of your mouth into the form of a YouTube video. And I understand that by that point you are beyond reason. So I know that for you this may fall upon deaf ears, but for the sake of the audience and my sanity, I will skip the rest of the pleasantries and get down to business. Because I believe that this could be quite educational.
Since no one was there, except God himself, how can you know for a fact how old the earth is? You can't. You will always have to use assumptions when you try and interpret the unobservable past.
I would try to point out that asserting something is unknowable without having ever studied it is intellectually lazy, but to save the time that it would take for this information to go in one ear and out the other, I will instead direct your attention to the shiny objects in the corner, whilst I try to explain to the rest of the class what you refuse to understand. The age of the Earth has been determined based on evidence obtained from a process known as radiometric dating, which is a technique used to date rocks and other geological features by comparing the difference in the rate of decay between naturally occurring isotopes described by a parameter known as a half-life. Now, a particular isotope of a particular element called a nuclide happens to be particularly good at demonstrating this age because in general the half-life of this isotope is not affected by external factors and depends solely on its nuclear properties. It is for this reason that these elements decay at a remarkably predictable rate. To put it simply, this element can be used like a clock to measure the age of the Earth by simply knowing the decay rates of the elements in the rock. Or, if I may direct Matt's attention back away from my big shiny balls, I will put it in terms that even you can understand. We know because we have the tools to measure it. Until you understand this, might I suggest you peddle your creationist bullcrap someplace else lest you have the repeated desire of getting spanked.
You then state that the scientific method tells us otherwise. Wrong again. The scientific method does not tell us anything. Scientists do. And scientists approach the issue of the age of the Earth with naturalistic and uniformitarian biases. Then they tell us the age of the Earth. The scientific method doesn't tell us anything. The facts don't speak for themselves. They must all be interpreted based on starting assumptions. Let's keep going.
That the Earth is in fact 4.5 billion years old, and the universe is even older.
Here's your dogmatic claim that the Earth is 4.5 billion years old. If you claim this is a fact, you have just left science. Science is about testing, observing, and repeating, not dogmatic claims about the unobservable past.
My goodness, Matt. It is utterly impossible to keep up to your frequent fecal fallations. It seems that every second word that comes out of your mouth is so inspiringly erroneous that to properly respond I would need to dedicate much more time to refuting this oral defamation than I believe you are willing to deserve. But if you think that the facts are somehow more than facts, then why don't you do some bloody work, roll up your sleeves, and check them for yourself? Once you have finally caught up to the rest of us, you will realize that it states clearly in the fucking definition that standard reference works are often used to check facts, and scientific facts are verified by repeatable experiments. Just like the repeatable, observable, testable experiments done through methods such as radioactive decay. Calling such methods dogmatic is the intellectual equivalent of flinging your own feces through an oscillating fan.
But wait, it's you that's wrong. See, it's easy to be right when your worldview is based on assumptions. You simply assume that naturalism and uniformitarianism is right. But what if we base our beliefs about the age of the Earth on facts instead of assumptions? For example, we can test the age of rocks that we already know the date of, because we were there when they formed. What about Mount Nguruho in New Zealand? Lava flows from 1975 dated at 1 million years old. Hualalai in Hawaii, around 200 years old. Mount Etna, Mount Laysan, Sunset Crater, the list goes on. The dating method doesn't work. When we know the age of the rock, because we were there when the rock formed, the dating method doesn't work. Yet for some reason, when we don't know the age of the rock, because we weren't there, you want to assume that radiometric dating works. Strange, isn't it? You are the one that's off by a factor of 1,000,000.
You go on to explain a few select cases where you think that radiometric dating may have been incorrect. But instead of simply taking your word for it, I checked your sources, and wouldn't you be surprised to find that every single one of your claims comes directly from either Answers in Genesis or the Institute for Creation Research. Of course, it isn't any surprise that you believe that all facts have some sort of bias, because in the sheltered world that you live in, you feel it necessary to steer all of your so-called evidence towards proving your dogmatic belief instead of allowing the evidence to speak for itself. This video so far has been nothing more than an unintelligible demonstration of textbook case of psychological projection. In conclusion, I will give your evidence more respect than it deserves by saying that testable modern science is always going to be better at helping us understand the world around us than some 10,000-year-old fairy tale about your personal favorite invisible friend in the sky.
Believing radiometric dating works is like believing your nose is 27 feet long. It's like believing your brain is smaller than the head of a pin. See, whether it's faulty radiometric dating methods, dinosaur soft tissue, comets, or carbon-14 in diamonds, the facts must all be explained away and twisted in order to fit your timescale of billions of years. It's like believing your mama weighs 145,000 pounds. As Psalm 18:17 says, the first to present his case seems right, till another comes forward and questions him.
Excuse me, I'd just like to ask a question. What does God need with a starship?